Hey friend, welcome back to my channel. Today I have a special guest named Amber from Burned In Teacher, and she's here all to talk about the Daily Five, whether she loves it or hates it. Welcome, Amber.
Thank you so much for having me. It's
I'm
such
so
a
excited.
pleasure to be here in person.
We've talked a lot about Daily Five behind the scenes because we're friends in real life now and also teacher friends and business friends. And we talked about Daily Five last year because she went back to the classroom. So tell us what you're doing now in the classroom.
I teach kindergarten, and this is my second year. I've taught for 14 years, and this is my second year of experience with kindergarten, which has been quite the experience.
And last
Mhm.
year, you were trying to figure out how to structure your literacy time
Mhm.
so that you could get to your reading groups, and you had 28 kids in your
I
classroom,
did. At the end of the year, I had 28.
which is
It was a lot.
insane to
Yeah,
me.
it was insane.
The most kindergartners I've ever had is 24,
Mhm.
so I can't imagine four
Yeah,
more of them.
it was a lot. It was a
And
lot.
and you were trying to figure out how to get them to read to self and do the things that you knew were good practices, but you weren't sure if Daily Five was for you because you'd tried it before, right?
Yes. So I was officially trained as a reading workshop teacher. So I really adopted the reading workshop method as what I truly believed what was best for kids in one district. Then several years later, I moved to another district where Daily Five and Cafe was like the end all be all, and they didn't really understand what I was talking about when I said the workshop model. So the way that they did it was very constricting. It was very restrictive of my time. And it left a very sour taste in my mouth it was just a lot of, I had a lot of difficulty understanding how I could meet kids where they needed to be, but also run Daily Five, all 5 rounds, by the way, every
Mm,
single day with a very restricted amount of time.
yes.
And so when I was telling you how much I was struggling last year with my kindergartners, and you said, "Oh, Daily Five all the way," I was like, "Nope, I don't want
She
to.
did.
I'm done." I like shut down the conversation. I was like, "I am not going to do Daily Five. I hate Daily Five. It is chaotic. I'm not doing it."
And I had told Amber that if Daily Five is done the way that I was doing it, that you would have a sense of peace and calm and get to your reading groups and feel like your kids, even in kindergarten, could work independently.
Mhm.
So, what was like the big change for you? Like, I can't remember what like made you do it.
What changed it for me was when you said, "I don't do all 5 rounds every
Oh,
day,"
yeah.
because it was drilled into me the belief that Daily Five is daily 5 rounds. And when I tried to do that with my first graders, it was absolute chaos. And you and I are very similar in our classroom management styles. Like we're very loving, but we also love the boundaries. We want to help to
Mhm.
teach our students what they can and cannot do, what it looks like, what it sounds like, that kind of stuff. But it was very hard to do because I didn't have time.
Yeah.
And then when I was working with kindergartners and we did reading group, like we were asked to do reading groups pretty close to the beginning of the year. Like we had a few weeks of like a buffer period. And again, I'm very structured.
Yeah.
So I was doing my best to kind of navigate that and see what that would look like. And Daily Five I never even allowed that to come into play. Because it just caused so much stress in my life in previous years. So when you said, "I only do 3 rounds a day," I believe it was something that you said
Between three
along.
and four. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I said, "Okay, tell me more. Let me just," because I'm always trying to keep my perspectives open and I want to
Yeah.
hear what is working for other teachers. So when you explained it to me, I was like, okay, like that to me is manageable. That's doable. And
Yes.
so I tried it, and now I can't imagine not doing it.
So, what does Daily Five look like in your classroom now?
So what it looks like, if I'm being completely honest, Daily Five looks very different now than it did 3 weeks ago. So for the first 5 weeks of school, obviously I teach kindergarten, so it's a lot of like teaching kids how to do school.
Yeah.
So our district has changed a lot. When I worked there the first 3 years, and then I left for 3 years to do Burn In Teacher full time. When I came back this last year, a lot of structural changes had happened. And so I taught, read to self, what it specifically looks like. I taught what their expectations were. And then, I'd read them a book, practice those strategies with them.
Yeah.
And then they would read to self for 4 minutes and then 5 minutes.
Build the stamina.
Yeah, we would build that stamina. And that to me wasn't new. That's Reader's Workshop, basically. But then we would come together, we would do a word work lesson. I'd teach them what was expected of them. Then they would go off and do independent work. We'd build that stamina separately. And then we would come back, we'd do a brain break, go to the bathroom, and then we'd do the third round, which was listen to reading. And we use Raz Kids.
Yeah.
So, which I love.
Me too.
And so we would actually, I would read a book with them. I would project one of their iPads onto our Promethean board, and I would actually model for them what it looks like to listen, to read out loud yourself. And then eventually when they got to an A book, then they would answer questions. So, and then they would go off and listen to reading and practice that stamina again. So we did that for several weeks, and we really built up those routines, what it looks like, what it sounds like. And it took all of the 5 weeks.
Yes.
But now it looks a lot different. And I've actually been very, very happy with how independent they are. Now that we are doing guided reading with swooping, we have 2 rounds of guided reading. So round 1, we have certain students who are going off with different guided reading teachers, myself included. And there are students who are working independently at their table space.
Great.
So what we do now is we do our word work right away in the morning. We do our phonics lesson, and we have a very predictable pattern of what word work they're doing per day. It just alternates between 2 different activities, 4 times a week. And so what they know when they finish their word work, they get to choose between listen to reading or read to self.
Yeah.
And so because I was able to build those routines through 3 separate rounds, now that we have 2 rounds and there's the element of choice, then after they finish their word work, they are very clear on the expectations and what I want to see and what I want to hear. And I never would have done that without you.
Well, thank you.
You're so welcome.
I think the hard part has been for people that want to learn more about Daily 5 and how to work in kindergarten and first grade is visualizing exactly what that looks like. And I think I could picture what you just said because I know how that works, but it really does work so beautifully. And it's like the kids just know what to do. And I think the one challenge that a lot of K1 teachers have is they think that their kids can't do things by themselves and they can't do it for 15 minutes and I have to just hover over them. And no, if you explicitly teach, like you said,
100%,
every single station, then they know what to do. And then also, they're not going to be wandering around the room because you've set that expectation that this is a time you should get up. And one of the things is stay in one spot.
Yes. So I was just going to tell you, number 1, I've never been of the belief that students can't work independently. So that was not a source of, what's my word? My word just, my brain just died. Contention. Yeah. That wasn't like a source of contention with me. Like I didn't have to convince myself that these kids that I didn't think could do anything on their own could. So that was not hard for me. What was hard for me is understanding how it is that I could make this the simplest time of our day when I know that I can overcomplicate things. Like I know lots of teachers can because it's easy because there's so much to do. So when you shared with me your rules that you explicitly teach and that they are basically the same for every round, like the kids literally can repeat them or finish the statements for me.
Yes.
Read the whole time, stay in one spot, keep your eyes on your own book, those kinds of things. Build like I kind of did this myself, build stamina. That means doing one thing for a long time. Like they can do that. And it's the same for every round. So they don't have to wonder like what I want to see from them because they know it's the same behaviors that they are expected to exhibit every single time. And I've even taken it into our writing workshop time.
Oh, you can do
right, the
daily
same
writing.
I have the same slide. I just change their expectations a little bit to match what they're doing. And it's like magic. And we've even done it for math as well, math independent work.
I love that. I've done daily 3 for writing, made it my own. And then I've also I do math daily 3 too. And the kids, honestly, the kids that need structure, which they all do, especially in title buildings, which is where Amber is, they all need it though. That structure for them, they look forward to it. And if you skip a day of it, they're like, why didn't we do daily 5 today? And the question might be, why are there not 5 stations? They always ask that at the beginning of the year. Why is it called daily 5? Because there are 5 possible choices.
Right.
But you don't have to do them all. You can customize it to your own room. And I think the caveat that we need to add to this, because we've talked a lot about this is not the science of reading. So this is about how you structure your literacy time. People kind of have their own thing that they want to do with that. That's fine. She's not even talking about how she teaches reading.
I think during one of our chats about this, I said, what this has helped me to understand is that daily 5 is the structure, where science of reading is the instruction.
Yes, I love that.
There's a difference between the structure and the instruction. So I think that I was really confused about that
Mm-hmm.
years ago when I was forced to do like Daily Five and Cafe, where now I fully understand that Daily Five, the structure of Daily Five, allows me to do really quick pieces of instruction. And then the students then have a very explicit time for them to practice
Yeah.
what we've talked about, which is totally up my alley, because now I've understood that Reader's Workshop can work as the instruction inside of the structure of Daily Five.
Yes, it's more to me a classroom management piece than
Yes.
it is what the instructional piece.
Mm-hmm.
And if you like having your administrator walk in and see everybody working on a task that they can explain to you exactly why they're doing something while you're pulling guided reading, then you will love the Daily Five. And I think the best way to get familiar with it for me was honestly to get the book and just try it.
Mm-hmm.
And then come back and like watch videos. Like I have a whole series on YouTube here about how to implement it. Like, and I'm going to keep building on those because people are so interested in it because it helps your classroom management.
Yes, and I do want to say too is that you can adjust the rounds to meet your needs. Like
Yes.
I can tell you with confidence, I will not be doing reading to someone,
Read to friend, yeah, or read to someone.
or read to friend, however you want to say that.
Yeah.
Like you can decide what you implement when. And for the first couple of weeks, we only did 2 rounds. We only did word work and read to self.
Yeah,
and then we built up that stamina enough, and we were really falling into a flow of our day where I could introduce that third round, which was listen to reading.
And I think that's a great thing to like hone in on, because in kindergarten, first and second grade, it's going to take longer.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I'm in 5th grade, my 5th graders picked it up right away. I'm also in a different school where the behaviors aren't as, they're more manageable.
Mm-hmm.
And they have learned, whether they knew it or not, all the way through their career, they've done things like read to self. Because you mentioned reading workshop. Well, you teach building stamina.
Right.
So by the time they're in 5th grade, they can do it a lot quicker. I think word work is the hardest one to teach because it's really a lot of skill based and it's very personalized.
Sure.
But you mentioned one thing I wanted to go back to, and it was that it was something about activities. Like I think one of the things that teachers avoid switching so much is because they're afraid they're going to have to do all of these activities that they switch out on a weekly basis. But
oh my goodness,
no, like
Mm-hmm.
every month or two, honestly. I think word work is one that you might switch out more, but you're doing that in your guided reading groups, most likely, like tying that in somehow or with your phonics lesson.
Well, I'm going to be really honest with you. And I don't know, I might hear different opinions about how I do word work. Okay. We are teaching letter by letter.
Mm-hmm.
And we are teaching let's say, actually Monday, when we go back on Monday, we are going to be teaching capital M.
Yeah.
And then on Tuesday, we'll teach lowercase m. And then Wednesday will be capital N. And then Thursday will be lowercase n. They know, like we have a specific routine on how we teach a capital letter. Mm-hmm. And they have a specific, and don't hate me, they have a specific handwriting worksheet that they do when we teach a capital letter. The next day, we have a specific routine that we go through for a lowercase letter. They have a specific handwriting worksheet that they practice both capital and lowercase L.
Yeah.
But they know, because we need to practice their handwriting.
Yes, and where do you squeeze that in?
Yeah, and build in their fine motor skills to practice actually writing that letter.
Yep.
So that's how we feel it's best for us to kind of integrate the two, because we don't have time for a separate handwriting time. Yep. But then after they finish that work, that's so important for them to get pencil to paper, to practice that act of writing.
Yes.
And this is different than work on writing, right? This is word work. Like eventually when we teach all the letters, we're going to move to CBC writing. Yeah. We're going to work on sentence writing. Like we will get there, but right now it's letters. Then we'll work on, I teach letters make words, words make sentences.
Yeah.
So right now we're practicing letters. So after they finish that worksheet, the handwriting worksheet, they know they have to clip it or put it where it belongs, and then they can make a choice.
Love that.
So they can choose a puzzle. They can choose a couple of different activities that I haven't rotated them once.
Yeah.
We are going into week 7.
And that's fine.
And it's fine. They want to go back to that same activity. They want to have lots of chances to interact with those materials.
So, have we talked about that before? Because that's exactly how I would do word work when I was in K1.
No,
So I did this is crazy.
we're like the same, like teacher
Yeah.
besties.
Like, I think that's where people think like word work has to be like you're saying, like CBC things right away. Those kids are not ready for that.
No.
So I would do handwriting first and then they could go grab a puzzle. Word work can be a puzzle.
Yes.
And that is good for their fine motor.
And as we're talking about consistency across the subject that you're teaching, so when they finish their math journal page, I'm going to a completely different subject now. So when they finish their math journal page, they have choices again.
Mm-hmm.
And they're very simple. They can choose from iReady, which is our math curriculum. They can
Yeah.
choose iReady Math. They can choose Little Writer app, which is practicing writing letters and numbers or shapes. Or they can choose puzzles again. And I have a mixture of math puzzles and ABC puzzles right now. And I will switch those out maybe in a month or two, but it's the same. Again, it's those same expectations, the same activities. Like, it's so easy to tell yourself that they have to be alternating every week and they have to be specifically math. Like, these kids just need exposure to letters and numbers. And in my opinion, it doesn't matter that it's super fancy and switched out every week or two. They need consistency.
Yes.
Is the most important thing for me.
I always come back to that too, and that repetition is the mother of skill. I always tell myself that. And the thing that they're not getting in their home lives 9 out of 10 times is that repetition. It's like, I'm bored. So then mom and dad gives them the iPad. I'm bored of this show. I only make it 5 minutes. It's our job at school to teach them to be satisfied with one activity for 15 to 20 minutes.
And to get good at it. It's about quality, not quantity. And I think that that's almost drilled into our head, like the quantity of stuff that we need to be pounding in the kids' head, where I have really the mindset of, I want to teach quality instruction. I want to give them quality time with these different materials that they have so they can feel successful. Yes. And that's the ultimate goal, right?
Yeah, totally. So I think this conversation could go on forever. And
Totally.
We love talking about the Daily Five, but here's what I want to leave with you. If you're curious about it, go back and watch some of my videos. You can find Amber on Instagram at Burned In Teacher, especially if you're teaching those primary grades. See what she's up to and doing that as well. Definitely find her if you don't follow her. And then get the Daily Five book. I'll leave a link in the description box below. It's going to be one of the most, I call it my teacher Bible, which it's kind of silly, but I love it. I go back to it every year. So just know that you can do it and start out slow. Start with one station at a time and build their stamina until you feel successful. Anything else you'd like to add, Amber?
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for challenging my narrative that I was having in my head. You know, I'm all about having those conversations that will change the way that you view any situation that you're in. It really did change my life as a kindergarten teacher. So thank you.
I'm so glad. And also, Amber has a weekly podcast. So check her out. Burned In Teacher is the name of her podcast.
The Burned In Teacher podcast.
I'll leave all those links in the description box below. And we're so glad you were here. Thanks so much for watching.
Thank you.